Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, where you will discover practical strategies to inspire you to boost the health and nutrition of your kids. I'm Jessica Donovan, a qualified naturopath specialising in kids' health, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you to raise healthy and happy kids. Let's get into it. Hello everybody, welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast. Jessica Donovan here. It's great to be in your ears having this important conversation with you. So we hear from a lot of parents in our audience, in our Natural Super Kids Club membership, maybe it's one-on-one clients, when they first book in with our practitioners, that they're feeling overwhelmed when it comes to their child's health symptoms or conditions, and they don't know where to start. And I think a lot of the problem here comes from the abundance of information that we have access to today. And of course, that's a blessing, that we can access any information that we want at our fingertips. But it also can make things overwhelming. We can get conflicting advice, and it can make things trickier in some respects. Of course, I am all for parents being proactive and doing their own research into their children's health and the best way to approach different symptoms and conditions that they might be experiencing. But I also know that can make things feel even more overwhelming, because there are lots of different opinions out there, and we can get inundated with information, even if it's just through our Facebook or our Instagram feed, or different content that's popping up online for us, or different opinions from family and friends, even different opinions from different practitioners that we might see. So I get that it can be overwhelming and confusing, and I really want to come back to a central place that we can focus on that has positive flow-on effects on all the different systems and organs of the body. So here at Natural Super Kids, we see a broad range of kids' health challenges. Our practitioners, our naturopaths, work one-on-one with people online. We have hundreds and hundreds of people in our Natural Super Kids Club, where we're hearing all the time about the different challenges, symptoms, conditions that they are having. So for context, commonly we see things like constipation and other tummy troubles. We see eczema and asthma, recurrent infections, or kids getting sick all the time. Things like tonsillitis and ear infections and croup are really common. Food intolerances, and also, mood and behavioural challenges and conditions, things like anxiety, even things like school refusal, which is often linked with anxiety, ADHD, autism. So I'm talking about a really broad range of challenges that families are faced with their kids' health these days. And all of these affect different systems of the body. For example, eczema. It's a skin condition, right? ADHD is a neurotype. It's a brain, not necessarily issue, but it's something that affects the brain, or the brain is working in a different way, if you like. When it comes to food intolerances, the gut obviously is the central place that is taking place. And so no matter which which systems of the body these different symptoms and conditions are affecting, again, we can still come back to one central foundational piece that will have a flow-on effect on all of these different areas of a child's health. And we hear from parents all the time, where do I start with this? Maybe you're thinking it's got to be diet. I need to increase my child's protein, or I need to reduce their sugar intake, or maybe they're having too much screen time. Maybe the new cleaning products that we're using are affecting their asthma or their eczema. Maybe we need to try a new cream on my child's eczema. Perhaps we need to try a supplement for the constipation that my child is struggling with. If so, which one do I choose? Maybe my child needs better sleep quality, and the symptoms that are associated with their ADHD might reduce. Maybe they need more rest. Maybe their nervous system is out of whack or dysregulated. Maybe they need help with emotional regulation. Like, all of these questions are really good questions to be asking, and they're all pieces of the puzzle. But again, when we're talking about a naturopathic approach to children's health, which is what we specialize here at Natural Super Kids, or a holistic approach to children's health, I want you to know that within the naturopathic philosophy, the gut, or the digestive system, is known as the root of the health of all the organs and the systems of the entire body. And I'm sure some of you probably could have guessed that's where I was going with this, because I talk about gut health so often and how important it is. It's really crucial. And it makes things easier because it's one place we can focus on making progress, or, instilling healthier habits, gut health habits, where we're going to get a flow-on effect on a child's mood, their behavior, their immunity, and so on. And I'll go into a bit more detail about how the gut improves all these different areas shortly. But the point that I want you to get from this podcast primarily is that repairing and nourishing the gut is the key to addressing children's health symptoms, allergies, eczema, tummy troubles, behavioral challenges, food intolerances, recurrent infections. If we look at repairing and nourishing the gut, it's going to help with all of these different areas. So it gives us a central place to focus and start, which reduces the overwhelm. And also, when we're working on the gut, we might be working on gut health to improve our child's eczema, but what we also might notice is, oh, hang on a minute, they're sleeping better, or their mood seems better. And so this is another benefit of focusing on gut health, is that you often get positive kind of flow-on side effects, if you like, in other areas that might not have been your primary focus, but you will notice improvements in those areas. I mean, a really good example of this is often fussy eating. So we might be working on improving a child's gut health for their constipation issues, but then mum notices or dad notices, hang on a minute, they're not so fussy with their food. They're actually eating more variety. They're not, pushing away the food that I'm serving at dinner time. So gut health is a really big factor when it comes to fussy eating in kids as well. So let's look at this. Let me frame this into a bit of an analogy for you. So a good way to think about gut health, or your child's gut health, and this definitely is translatable to adults as well. So think of your child's gut health like the foundation of a house. If the foundation is solid, everything else is steady as well. So just like when the gut is healthy, a child's immunity, their mood, their skin, even their appetite is more balanced. But if the foundation cracks, gets wobbly, you start seeing issues in other areas of the house, like leaky roofs or squeaky floors. So addressing gut health is like fixing that foundation, and suddenly everything else starts to fall into place. And I think that really illustrates the importance and the foundational impact that gut health has on the rest of the body. So let's dive into some of the specifics in terms of how gut health impacts different areas of the body. So, of course, I think everyone understands that the gut is where the absorption of nutrients happens. So it's not just about the intake of nutrients, like what's going in through food or through supplements. It's about how well those nutrients are being absorbed. And our kids have a really high need for nutrients. They're growing, they're developing, their nutrient needs are high compared to adults. And so with gut health being, if our children have got good gut health, that absorption can be optimal. On the flip side, if our children have issues with their gut, if they've got imbalances, then the absorption of the nutrients that they're getting through food and supplements is not going to be absorbed as well. And so the body won't be able to utilize those nutrients. So the gut is where we absorb nutrients. So that's, pretty straightforward in terms of why gut health is important there. The gut is also essential when it comes to eliminating waste. Of course, we have various channels of elimination in our bodies. We sweat, we urinate, we poop, but when we're talking about the gut, it's the primary way that we get rid of waste. And getting rid of waste is important for obvious reasons, but for kids, we really don't want waste sitting there for longer than it needs to, reabsorbing back into the bloodstream. It just puts extra pressure on things like the liver, and so elimination of waste is another important function of the digestive system or the gut. But then if we dig a bit deeper, we also know that the gut impacts our immune system. Now, this is one of the biggest challenges we hear from parents, is that their kids are getting sick, they're not bouncing back from sickness well, they keep getting ear infections, they keep getting croup. And so what we need to know here is that 80 to 90% of our immune system is located in the gut. So if our child has gut imbalances or an unhealthy gut, their immune system is not going to be great. So if we want to work on boosting our kids' immune system, I think most parents will put their hand up for that. We need to be considering a child's gut as primary to that, foundational to the immune system. And so here I'm talking about more the defensive side of the immune system, fighting off infections, keeping our kids, healthy, especially through the winter time, but also year round. But the other function of the immune system is to keep the body regulated, to make sure the body isn't reacting to things that aren't dangerous. If a virus comes into the body, then yes, it's good that our immune system is fighting that off and, an immune response is happening. But if our children are eating things or breathing things, like pollens, for example, in this hay fever season, and they are reacting to those pollens, then that is a sign that immune regulation is out. The immune system is being reactive. It's reacting to things that it shouldn't be, that aren't dangerous to the body. And so when we're looking at that type of immunity, allergies and also atopic conditions like eczema and asthma, which are often tied up in allergies, the gut is super important in that immune regulation as well. It's one of the key things that as naturopaths we work on when we're working with kids with allergies, intolerances, and atopic conditions like eczema, asthma, hay fever. So the gut is important for the defensive side of the immune system, but also immune regulation when it comes to allergies. And then we can go on to things like mood and behavior and sleep. Now, these things might not seem very related to the gut, but again, there's so many reasons that gut health is paramount to things like mood, sleep, and behavior. So our gut and brain are connected via a nerve called the vagus nerve, and they communicate. Our gut communicates with our brain, or more specifically, the microbes within our gut communicate with our brain, and our brain communicates with our gut microbes. Isn't that just fascinating that this communication is happening without us even knowing? And we also know that the majority of the neurotransmitters that affect our kids' mood, things like serotonin, dopamine, they are produced within the gut. They're not produced in the brain. They're produced within the gut, and then they act on the brain. So for these reasons, and I've done other episodes where I've gone further into, like deeper into this gut-brain connection, but just like as a bit of a surface level kind of chat about this today, the gut is hugely important when it comes to mood, sleep, and behavioral challenges. And we see it all the time anecdotally with the clients that we work with here at Natural Super Kids. When we, address the tummy troubles, all of a sudden mood's better, sleep's better, behavior is better. And if your child has a diagnosis or a condition that is behavioral, or even, mental health, like anxiety or depression, then focusing on their gut can make such a difference when it comes to their mood, their sleep, and their behavior. And I also just want to talk about fussy eating. I kind of talked about it, said something about this very early on in the podcast, but one of the key things we work on with fussy eaters is gut health, because when there are imbalances within the gut, otherwise known as dysbiosis, it can affect a child's appetite and it can affect their eating preferences. So if our kids have an unhealthy balance within the gut of microbes, which is really easy to kind of get to with our modern diet and lifestyle, they will crave more sugary, starchy foods, and they won't want anything to do with, healthy whole foods. And that can definitely change as we start to balance out the gut. So knowing that appetite and also food preferences are, really dictated by our children's gut health is something we want to know if we want our children to eat more variety or if our kids are struggling with fussy or picky eating. The other thing to note here is a huge source of inflammation for our children comes from their gut. So when we're thinking about inflammatory conditions, swollen, enlarged conditions, so, thinking about things like eczema is an inflammatory skin condition. Enlarged tonsils is an inflammation issue. And there's so many other, inflammation issues that our children can, struggle with. A lot of that inflammation is coming from the gut. So if there's imbalances in the gut, if there is leaky gut happening, then that will impact other areas of the body. So that's another way on, I guess, a larger, like a zoomed out scale where the gut can impact different parts of the body through that inflammation. So if we just kind of step back a bit, we've gone into a little bit of detail into those individual kind of areas of the body. And then that can become like, oh, well, where do I start when it comes to my child's gut health? So I think a really important thing to know if we're sort of stepping back and kind of coming up with, all right, where to from here once I know this information, it is that microbiome diversity is really important. It's one of the most important things to focus on when it comes to our child's gut health. And by diversity, I'm talking about lots of different beneficial species of bacteria within the gut is a good thing when it comes to our overall children's well-being. And the problem is that our gut microbiome diversity has dramatically decreased over the years due to so many different factors in our diet, in our modern diet and our modern lifestyle. The fact that we're spending more time indoors, the fact that we're obsessed with hygiene and sanitation, and that can, have a negative impact on our gut microbiome. The fact that our kids are not eating enough fiber, they're not eating enough plant foods, they're not eating enough, that they're eating too many processed foods, which are lacking a lot of the really healthy ingredients that nourish the gut. So all of these things add up to reduced diversity of the gut microbiome. And we know from the research that low gut microbiome diversity is linked to things like constipation, eczema, allergies, low immunity, anxiety, depression, even ADHD and autism are linked with low diversity. And so improving gut microbiome diversity is going to be a really good thing to focus on when it comes to improving gut health in general, and then that having a flow-on effect on to the rest of the body. And when we talk about gut microbiome diversity, one of the key things that we want to be focusing on is diversity or variety in our diet, particularly when it comes to plant foods. So getting more variety of plant foods into our kids' diets, legumes, vegetables, fruits, different whole grains, different spices, different herbs. And here it's not so much about the volume of food that you're getting into your child, it's more about the variety. So the take-home message from this podcast episode is, one, know that gut health is foundational to your child's overall well-being. Think about that, house foundation analogy that I shared. And number two, focus on variety in your child's diet to improve the the diversity of their gut microbiome and also their gut health in general. So what can you do in your next shopping trip to maybe choose some different fruits and vegetables than you normally would? What can you do to include more fresh herbs and spices in the meals that you're making that your kids might be open to trying? What can you do to increase legume and lentils content of your child's diet? Maybe it's adding some lentils to their spaghetti bolognese, or some black beans to the next taco mince or nachos that you make. So think about small changes that you can make that will nourish your child's gut microbiome and improve their gut health in general. I hope this has been an interesting conversation for you. I would love to hear from you. You can reach out to me on Instagram over at Natural Super Kids. I'd love you to let me know what you thought of this episode. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you as well. And if you know of someone who might be interested or should hear this information, then please send this podcast on to them. I really appreciate any sharing. The more people we can get this message out to, the better. I'm going to be continuing my conversation about gut health over the next couple of weeks on the podcast. So make sure you stay tuned, and we're going to be sharing lots of great information and practical tips over on Instagram over the next couple of weeks on gut health as well. So come on over and join us over there at Natural Super Kids. Also, I do have a free gut health ebook that you can download. I'll make sure the link to that is in the show notes. That will give you some more practical tips on how to get started to improve your child's gut health. I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, for the show notes for this episode, as well as a whole heap of inspiration to help you raise healthy and happy kids. I'll see you next week.